Welcome to another episode of Off the Menu. I'm your host, Vincent Franchini from Tumblr House, here with a spiritual Charles Coulombe.
Spiritual. As in spiritual but not religious.
No, yeah, you're religious.
All right. So you're saying I'm spiritual and religious.
Yeah.
Okay. Definitely. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. That's fine. I can live with that. So I'm off with the spirits, eh?
Yeah.
Sort of a Halloween thing.
No, it's what is it? The month of the Holy Souls?
It is the month of the Holy Souls.
Well, praying for your dead.
Yeah. Lord knows I have a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I acquired a new one just this past weekend.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But such is life. Unfortunately, when you get to be my age, the people you know start popping off on you. I don't mean old people like your grandparents and parents and so forth, who are a terrible tragedy and all that. But you kind of expect them to go at some point. No, I'm talking about your contemporaries, or a reminder that you're not going to be around forever either. So enjoy it while you can, kids, because I'm not going to be around forever. Just so you'll know. The great chess player in the sky will one day remove this particular pawn from the board. Remember that. I don't know what happens to chess pieces when they sit in the box, though. Maybe they talk. I don't know. But on a happier note, I was very, very excited to hear that your office Halloween party went very well, and the employee picnic went well. That was wonderful.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I dressed up as Frodo Baggins.
Oh, that's great. I could see you as Frodo.
Brought my birthday present.
Oh, one ring to rule them all, one ring to find them. I thought that thing had gone into Mount Doom.
No.
Wait a minute. I just had an idea. If they finally ever do raid Tumblr House, the government, to get your tax records and stuff, you'll be able to use that as part of your escape plan.
Yeah, just slip it on.
Slip it on and poof, you're gone. You'll be right past them. Yeah. Presumably to awaiting DC-3 at some unnamed airstrip somewhere.
Yeah.
With the Tumblr House cash box under your arm.
Yeah, I love that Tumblr House cash box.
Yeah, well,
it's the essence of Tumblr House right there. That's such a small little thing, but there it is.
Well, they say the Tumblr House has the largest collection of $10,000 bills still in circulation.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's
crammed in there.
Crammed in there. Yep.
It's no. I remember when your brother still owned the place. I asked him what it was, and he said it was mad money. Which I don't know. Several millions of dollars in mad money. I'd have to get pretty angry to want to go somewhere on that. I'll tell you. But no. Well, that's great. But everybody seemed to enjoy it. They all had a good time. They said you were the belle of the ball. You didn't get drunk this year, which was interesting.
I never get drunk, Charles. How dare you?
Of course not. Of course not. But you certainly didn't get drunk this year, for which everyone is terribly grateful. And it worked out very, very well. Everybody enjoyed themselves. Even Tyrone had a good time.
Tyrone always has a good time.
Yeah, but I mean, he had a good time without getting a hold of party crashers, is what I'm saying. He enjoyed the party.
Right.
He has kind of a interesting... He kind of enjoys catching party crashers. I think he enjoys elements of his job a little too much, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, that's what makes him so good.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Wasn't Ferry Hardcastle said in That Hideous Strength, you can't expect someone to do a job like mine well unless they get something out of it.
Exactly.
But anyway, so I was glad to hear that. I'm glad the pumpkin pies turned out well, because the last time I looked in, again, I love this being passed from department to department on the phone. It's very interesting. Uh,
How's your
but
Halloween,
anyway,
Charles?
my Halloween, well, it wasn't anything like yours. I mean, I know Tumblr House was festooned with jack-o'-lanterns and things like that. Well, I didn't have a single jack-o'-lantern, nor did I have any trick-or-treaters. I had zip. But I managed to keep the spirit of the day. How, you ask? Well, I'll tell you. Apart from going to Mass, I watched old horror movies all day. Black and white things like White Zombie and The House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts. Just real breezes from the grooveyard is what they were. They were oldies but moldies. And once again, renewed my affection for Christopher Lee and Vincent Price, Boris Karloff, Bela Lugosi, all those guys.
Was Christopher Lee an actor who was kind of typecast like Vincent Price?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, he played in all the Hammer Dracula films. He was as typecast as Bela Lugosi, let alone
Oh,
Vincent
wow.
Price.
Okay.
And for, I would say, a good 15 years maybe, seemingly the biggest, if not the only thing he did, were the Hammer horror films, and he always played Dracula. But he got out of them in the end because he thought they were getting far too sexual. So that was that. But the funny thing about Christopher Lee is that he had been in the, I suppose you would say, Secret Service, or he'd been a British agent behind enemy lines during World War II. And that led to the very funny exchange when they were doing Lord of the Rings between him and Peter Jackson. Because he was supposed to creep up behind, I guess, Wormtongue and slit his throat.
No, well, vice versa happened.
You're right. But, I'm forgetful. But anyway, the exchange was, Jackson says, imagine what it would like to hear the sound of the breath coming out of a man's slit throat. And Lee said, I don't have to imagine. I know. Which kind of made everyone like, ooh.
Yeah, because he was a commando.
He was a commando and did all sorts of fun stuff he couldn't talk about. So
he also read Lord of the Rings once a year, every single year. So I'm told.
Did, and he had known Tolkien. And if that weren't bad enough, one of the BBC traditions, which is taken from an old English tradition, is to do a ghost story at Christmas. And one of the leading writers of ghost stories in Britain in the late 19th, early 20th centuries was the canon of the Provost of Eton, M.R. James, Canon M.R. James. And several years toward the end of his life, Lee played M.R. James, reading his own ghost stories.
Yeah.
But what they would do is they would reproduce one of the parties that James would read these ghost stories at on the BBC.
Ah.
And so you'd have all these kids rushing into his home, which is how it actually happened. And he'd read the story, and then it would go to the scene, and you'd see it as a teleplay. It was very, very well done. Anyway, so that's what I did for Halloween. The next day was All Saints, and I went into Vienna for the High Mass of Allerheiligen, which was good. Latin Mass, Tridentine. Today, I stayed in because I had to do some work, and also I had a show to do. Oh, that's right, I'm here now. All Souls Day. So I did the Byzantine liturgy in the morning, but then at 3 o'clock this afternoon, a bunch of us, including our Byzantine chaplain, went to the local cemetery, and we did the Byzantine prayers for the dead. Even though this is not in their calendar, but they can do prayers for the dead anytime. And we'll be doing this every day this week to November the 8th to get the plenary indulgence.
Oh.
Because you get that for praying for the dead in a graveyard during the octave of All Saints.
We had a cool situation last week because Sunday was in the old calendar was the kingship of Christ.
Right.
And our priests, there's apparently a specific prayer where if you say it out loud, you get a plenary indulgence, and obviously with an Our Father, Hail Mary. But he had everyone say it out loud, and I was so grateful.
It's the consecration of the human race to the Sacred Heart.
That's right.
By Leo 13th.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
And the fun thing is, you could do it again on the last Sunday in November.
There you go.
So
it's a good, yeah.
It's, as they say, a feast so nice we do it twice. But the tomorrow, which is the day before everyone's going to be seeing this, it's the Feast of St. Hubert. Now, it's a Sunday, but St. Hubert is the patron of hunting. And all across Europe, even in Protestant Europe, they have masses of St. Hubert with the music of the Mass, whether traditional or novus ordo, done with hunting horns. And if that weren't enough, they have the blessing of hounds. So it's nice. Really, really neat stuff.
You gonna drink some Jägermeisters to celebrate?
I may force myself just to say that I've done it. And the other thing is that tomorrow the Café Vess, our only restaurant here in Trumau, are going to be having wild boar and venison on the menu. I'll probably have a little both.
How does it taste? How does wild boar taste? Is it kind of a dark meat situation?
It tastes like pork, only more so. That's what I can tell you.
Interesting. Okay. I like pork.
Me too. I like wild boar, although I've been accused of being one myself.
Ha 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 ha.
Anyway, so, but the day that you all are actually seeing this, Monday the 4th, is the Feast of St. Charles Borromeo.
Ooh.
And, yeah, hot stuff. But that isn't all. Not by a long shot.
What else?
Well, I'm a little embarrassed to say, but I suppose I ought to. This coming Friday is November the 8th. And you know what happened on November the 8th? 1960. John F. Kennedy was born. No, I'm sorry, he wasn't born. He was elected. I was born and he was elected. It's my 59th birthday. So feel free, ladies and gentlemen, to send good wishes, tons of cash, exotic gifts, anything you want. And I'll certainly be looking forward to it.
Yeah. No, send it through Tumblr House, and we'll safeguard it for Charles.
Yeah, they'll send the cash to Tumblr House. Yes, yeah. I know. It'll go to the cash box. At least every $10,000 bill I get.
It's the safest
there aren't
place.
Many of them left. Yeah, there aren't many of them left, oddly enough. $10,000 bills. But one of the things too that is good to bear in mind, at least to my way of thinking, is that apart from my birthday, Monday the 8th is Friday. The 9th is Saturday. Is that right?
Let me check. 9th is Saturday, yes.
So the 10th is Sunday. That means that a week from when everyone sees this, it will be St. Martin's Day, Martinmas. So time to pull out the wine and have a goose. But it's also going to be Armistice Day, Remembrance Day, Veterans Day. So my recommendation, ladies and gentlemen, if you're hearing this in the United States, contact the local VFW or American Legion. If you're in Canada, the Royal Canadian Legion. If you're in Britain, the Royal British Legion. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, the Returned Services League. And get your poppy.
Oh.
Wear your poppy proudly in remembrance of those who gave the final sacrifice in the Great War and all the other wars our countries have fought. If you happen to be in France, well, then get yourself a Bleuet de France, a blue cornflower. And if you're in Germany, you want to be wearing a Vergess-mich-nicht, a forget-me-not. Every country has their things. And don't forget, too, November the 11th, you want to do at 11 a.m., 2 minutes silence the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, the day the guns on the Western Front finally stopped.
Okay.
Honor the dead, ladies and gentlemen. Honor the dead. If you drop by a VA cemetery on that day, if you've got nothing better going on. I'm saying all this now a week in advance so you can set your plans. It wouldn't do any good for them to hear us talking this way on the actual day.
That's true.
So, and if you know any veterans, buy them a drink or something. Lord knows this country and all the other countries owe a lot to the men and women who have risked their lives for us. Ladies and gentlemen, I much prefer saying risk their lives for us than saying risk their lives for our freedom or our way of life. Risk their lives for us. I think that's the best way you can put it.
I like it because that's all. It also personalizes it. I think that makes it nice.
So, what do we got?
Okay, let's go to the memes.
Oh boy!
Are you ready? Okay, here we go.
Memes of production. Are they going to be nationalized this week, or are they staying in private hands?
No, they are going to be nationalized because we can't trust them with anyone else.
All right, we're nationalizing the memes of production here and now. It finally happened, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, first one from Aaron Hook. I'm not entirely sure what's going on here, but you're handing me pay rise suggestions, and I'm saying take it away, it burns.
Yes, like a vampire being faced with a cross.
So that's like one of your old school horror movies, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
More slander and libel from Aaron Hook. Well,
slander and libel?
That's just disappointing.
I think look at this as acceptance.
Just disappointed and hurt.
You're being accepted for who you are, not frowned at, not judged. I think that's beautiful.
That's sad. What a sad day.
Well,
what a sad day. Okay, let's go to the next one. Another one from Aaron Hook. Let's see here. Tumblr House Halloween Party 2018. Vincent presenting Charles with his prize on winning the best costume competition. Best costume in quotes. Now, I actually didn't understand this. You had to give me the context for me to appreciate this. Could you explain what's happening here?
Yes, they put our heads on the Van Helsing and Dracula, in the original 1931 Dracula. Van Helsing is opening up the mirror, and Van Helsing is Dracula's not happy because he doesn't have a reflection. So he says, get it away.
So is this some sort of, like, in the actual movie, is this scene like some sort of game that they're playing? Like Van Helsing is saying, "I know," but
yes,
but Dracula is
It's partly to prove to himself because he wasn't sure 100%. But once you see someone doesn't have a reflection, it's kind of a giveaway.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Okay. Okay, one last meme for today from Pete Maresca. A picture of Charles and I doing a show when you're over here, and I say, I should probably give him more days off. And then you're sleeping, catching some Z's. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry. What was that about? Very funny. Ha, ha, ha. I don't sleep that much on the show. Do I?
I would never do that. I would never think to give more days off. That's like encouraging more bad behavior, right? See, we're in Tumblr House, we're about character building. See, one of the aspects of character building is effective time management.
So you're saying if I'm overtired, it's my problem.
I'm saying we need to foster growth and development and look at what you could be doing instead of what you're currently doing, and let's come up with a plan and let's come up with solutions.
I feel somehow like I'm trapped in the pages of Dale Carnegie. It's very upsetting. How did I get into this book? Someone let me out. Gosh. 15 foolish ways of effective people or something. All right, fine. What else we got? So much for the means of production. No wonder they were nationalized.
Yeah.
They're obviously inefficiently run. They deserve to be nationalized.
No. Oh, don't be bitter. All right. All right. Just shout out to our to Patreon. Some people have complained like last episode was a little under an hour, and only an hour. Well, if you're not getting enough, become a patron. Get an additional video every week. We had a longer patron pre-show this week. It was 35 minutes. Asked Charles a bunch of questions. It was really interesting content on Mother Teresa, the Bourbons, yep. Romanovs, Savoys, Hohenzollerns, Charlemagne.
I got tired out.
Yeah. So
buy into the pre-show, ladies and gentlemen.
There you go. You want more content, and we'll ask your question. If you're one of these people who's submitting questions, you direly want it asked, becoming a patron is the way to go. All right, let's go to the questions.
All right.
First question is from Brian.
Okay, Brian.
Charles, what do you think of Charles Dickens? He's one of my favorite authors. I love his sense of humor and style and characterization. He satirizes the corruption of the legal system and draws sympathy to the plight of the poor who were oppressed by industrialization, many of whom were forced into debtor prisons like Charles's father. As a person, however, he is not an admirable figure, to say the least, and anti-clericalism finds a place in his writings, though I would likewise criticize England's so-called ministers.
Well, that's the thing, is anti-clericalism was aimed at the Church of England, which in those days was very much the high and dry church before the Oxford movement had too much effect on it. Dickens, I agree with you. I mean, what can I say? He's one of my favorites for the same reasons. Don't have too much to add except that, yeah, Dickens is great. It's interesting, and I think this would be especially interesting for you as head of Tumblr House, to note that most of Dickens's surviving correspondence are dunning letters to his publishers and editors of magazines.
Okay, where are we going with this?
I'm just saying that it was a problem back then that people felt that paying authors was not necessarily, at the top of their interests. And Dickens did his best to make it plain that, he was the goose that laid the golden eggs, the cow that got milked, etc. Just thought I'd point that out. And obviously, this has nothing to do with you or anything in the present day. Just need to emphasize that.
Sounds like writer ego to me.
Writer ego.
Yeah, you ever see
writer ego?
What's oh gosh, by the Coen brothers.
Barney Fink?
Barton Fink. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
You're the writer. You're John Turturro's character, and you're Barton Fink. I am the Hollywood producer.
Yeah, notice who they named the movie after. Smart guy. Uh-huh. Yeah. And who can remember the producer's name? Oh, that's right. No one. So you see, it's not a question of writer ego. It's a question of things being as they are. The writer creates. It's the producer's job to get that vision from the mind of the writer to the eyes of the audience and ears, since we don't know in the silent era. Sorry?
Did you actually watch it? I recommended that movie to you so long ago. Did you actually watch it?
I don't think I have. I might do that tonight.
It's old school Hollywood. I mean, it is so you. It's
unbelievable.
I know. And, dude, get this. It's a writer who writes Broadway musicals and goes from New York to Hollywood.
Yes, and I can tell you, having seen what they did with they just did a movie, Hail Caesar.
Yeah.
Oh heavens, that was such a brilliant film. But you know what was sad?
What?
It was filled with in-jokes for people who know the industry. My brother and I sat in a movie theater, and we were the only ones laughing.
Yeah.
That was sad.
Oh, well. No accountant for taste.
I guess not. All right, well, what else we got?
Next question's from Andrew.
Andrew.
Charles, I messaged you regarding the troubling case of C.S. Lewis. A friend of mine pointed out that he, of all people, could not have been ignorant of what the Catholic Church teaches, and yet did not convert. J.R.R. Tolkien even brought him a priest, his own son, on his deathbed, and he still did not submit to the Church. Should Catholics so freely quote such a tragic figure, especially in apologizing for the faith to non-Catholics, as it may imply that Lewis was not so?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a little bit like Tertullian, who was always quoted as a church father and frequently quoted by very solid theologians, but he was a Montanist. You know, he left the faith before he died. Lewis, of course, was an Ulsterman. And, you know, I hope he saved his soul. I don't see how, but maybe he did. Who knows? I wasn't there. It's a very sad case because I'm really fond of Lewis's work. And, of course, Tolkien was obviously very fond of him personally. Can only hope that he changed his mind before he popped it somehow.
So, what do you think about the quote situation?
The quote situation? Oh, I mean, quoting him.
Quoting him.
No, I mean, when he's right, he's right. I never have a problem quoting non-Catholics who have useful things to say about the Church. Why should I?
My favorite quote that I always use is his monarchist quote.
Yeah.
Because we've never seen anything so true.
And it gets truer as we get older.
I mean,
in the sense that, you know, the whole thing about where men are forbidden to honor monarchs, they'll honor everyone, even famous prostitutes and gangsters instead. Well, that's what we do.
Yeah.
You know. So, no, I mean, you know, pray for the repose of his soul. That's about all you could do. It doesn't look good, but perhaps he wised up before the end. Who knows? I don't.
Okay. Next question is from Max, who sent in an awesome question. I love this one.
All right.
A question to spooky Mr. Charles.
Ooh.
JFK blown away. What else do I have to say? Who did it? Does Charles buy the lone gunman theory, or was Oswald just a patsy? The truth cannot be suppressed.
Okay, we'll divide that question into two parts. Firstly, the truth can always be suppressed.
Oh, no.
So, just thought you needed to know that. As far as the rest of it goes, I really have no opinion, honestly. I have heard so much down through the years, I've got no idea what, if any of them are true. I think the only way you know for sure is if you've been in on it. You know? I've always joked that it was a CIA plot to get John Connally, as evidenced by the magic bullet being shot, missing Kennedy initially, bouncing backwards and forwards through Connally's body, coming out and shooting and killing Kennedy, while Connally survived. But seriously, I don't know. I really have no idea. I've heard so many theories, and I have no evidence upon which to base an opinion.
You can't even speculate.
No.
Sad. What a sad day. Okay.
The truth can be suppressed.
All right, next question is from Drew.
Okay, Drew.
I have a friend who grew up Calvinist and became Catholic several years ago. The more time he's spent away from Calvinism, the more he's begun to notice cult-like aspects in the religion. People have told him that John Calvin was similar to a cult leader in some ways, but he has nothing to back that up. Was Calvinism a cult? Is it still? What defines a cult?
Well, that's the first question. Before you can ask if anything is a cult, I mean, you could say a religious order was a cult. What is a cult? And a cult is something where the leader demands complete and unquestioning obedience. He very often identifies his will with God's will. Worse, he personalizes it so that it's not the office even, but him personally. Was Calvin like that in Geneva? Yeah, to a certain degree. You could actually, I guess, call Genevan Calvinism a cult because it monopolized everything, and everything was done according to his whim. based upon his own insights, with no scripture or tradition, save as he interpreted them. Is Calvinism today still a cult? Well, firstly, Calvinism today is almost non-existent. I mean, it remains a secular attitude with us Americans and with the Afrikaners and so on. And there are certain fringe groups scattered across the globe that still believe in real Calvinism. But they're not the majority of people who belong to either the Reformed or Presbyterian traditions. So it's hard for me to say. A lot would depend upon the given group.
Okay. Next question. Charles, I do not seem to possess as lively an imagination as you do. I struggle with mental prayer. All I have been taught is Ignatian spirituality, which relies heavily on the imagination, but I am more inclined toward Benedictine piety. When I pray the rosary, I often find myself focusing more on the words and concepts than imagining the scene in my head. Likewise, after receiving the body and blood of our Lord in the Eucharist, I feel inclined to read the prayers in the Missal. They are so beautiful and traditional and seem to express my adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication much better than my spontaneous thoughts can. So I guess the question is he okay?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are many different types of spirituality because there are many different personality types. I would recommend that you get a hold of Dom Guéranger because you appear drawn to the Benedictine side of things. And also you get a hold not just of his liturgical year, but of the exercises of St. Gertrude the Great, which you might find a little more to your taste.
Yeah. In Way of Perfection, St. Teresa of Avila talks about praying well a lot. And she was a contemplative, but she said if you can't do it, it's fine. It's not a deficiency. Some people,
some
like
people can start shaped for it. Yeah.
So, and I used to do that. I'm kind of jumping around right now. I really used to do like structured prayer after communion. I liked St. Thomas Aquinas's prayer.
Sure.
Enrich my poverty, and stuff like all the Lord, behold, I approach thee as one who is sick, to the physician of life. Some powerful images there. So different strokes for different folks.
Yep.
Okay. Charles, can you please describe the special characteristics or features of Polish Catholicism?
Oh boy. Well, firstly, it's primarily exercised by Polish people.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, go on.
I thought you would want that.
Yeah.
There is a great deal of its regular practice is similar to that of its neighbors, the Slovaks, the Ruthenes, and so on. The church year is very, very important, and not just the liturgical side, but the paraliturgical side. Family customs, home customs are very, very important in Polish Catholicism. However, too, it's also bound up a great deal with the Polish identity, a bit like with the Irish and certain other, the Italians, the French used to be as well, in that both the nationhood was very much defined by Catholicism, but the national Catholicism was also very much defined by national identity, if you see what I mean. So with the French, they were very much about being the oldest daughter of the church. And the Irish were very much about being the brave little Emerald Isle that withstood centuries of anti-Catholic oppression until deciding on it for themselves in free elections. That's not the way it was said. It was not presented that way. And with the Poles, they often presented themselves as the martyr of nations, or the Christ of the nations, suffering for the sins of others. They also, like several other countries in their geographical position, saw themselves as the bastion of Christendom against Mongols and Tartars and other unpleasant people who came out of the East. So there's a very martial quality to Polish Catholicism.
And I love this question because it gives me an excuse to show and talk about one of the coolest pictures I've ever seen. I came across this on Twitter. I think it was like last year. I'm going to put that up on the screen now for everybody. Several priests just shooting guns. Obviously, the main priest is the heavy set one, and he's got these cool guy glasses on, and he just looks so comfortable. Honestly, it looks like he's executing someone.
Well, he is. What's that, Your Excellency? You say we're not permitted the Latin Mass. I don't think so.
Wow.
Your time has come, Bishop. Say your prayers. It's time to go now.
Wow.
Boom, boom.
But no, you talked about what did you say in the beginning? They have very strong traditions and rituals.
Yep.
And so what this actually is, the real context of this is it's opening a gun range. So how do you open a gun range? You sort of get, a priest and they shoot the first shots and whatever. I don't know what else is involved, but I'm sure some sort of blessing.
Then they give the blessing. And of course, the Polish government has consecrated Poland to Christ the King and to the Immaculate Heart, and proclaimed that Christ is King of Poland, Our Lady is Queen of Poland. So there's certainly a much better understanding of things on the part of the Polish government than in that of many others.
I just love this picture, though. I don't know. It's so... I don't want to say politically incorrect, or I don't know. It's just so... It captures a special thing.
Well,
right
you know that there are certain people who would be upset by it and waving
that
their
too.
hands.
Absolutely.
Why are they like that? It's so awful. I could spit. You go right ahead and they'll blow your brains out, moron.
That too. My inner troll is very gleeful at that picture.
Think of poor Pepe the Frog.
What about Pepe the Frog?
I just think it's sad what's happened to it.
What's happened to him?
Those priests used him as a target.
Well. Okay, next question. We have this very special next question. It is from my brother, Steve, the former one suit to rule them all.
What does our former Jefe want out of me?
All right.
And wait a minute. Why should I even answer him? He's yesterday's news. He's dead as a doornail. He's the passenger pigeon. He's the Carolina parakeet. He's the Eastern bison. I mean, he's the mastodon. He's the whole contents of the La Brea tar pits, all rolled in one. The man's extinct. He's yesterday's news. He's gone. He's left the building. Why should I even answer whatever? All right, fine. As a person, because he's your family, as a personal favor to you, I will answer your older but now deposed brother's question.
Wow, I didn't know you're that heartless, Charles. Gosh, no charity. No charity.
Charity begins at home. Don't ask me what that means in this context.
I don't know what that means either. Okay.
I just threw it out there.
There you go. Charity begins at home. All right. All right.
What does he want to know?
He wants to know, if you could, how would you change the Constitution? And no, you can't just turn. You cannot turn it into a monarchy. Let me stop you right there. You cannot turn the country into a monarchy. Sorry, buddy. You have to work in the confines of a republic. So
you didn't know I was going to do that.
You were going to do that. I know you. You were going to do that. Yeah, I do know that. So. Yeah.
Maybe it would have been a gradual change over like 3 months or something.
No gradual changes either.
All right. Well, okay. Well, there's several things I would do. Are you ready?
I think so.
Can you take it?
I think so. I'm a little scared, though.
The first.
Okay.
I would repeal most of the amendments to the Constitution after the Bill of Rights.
Any particulars in mind?
Well, yeah. I would repeal the 18th prohibition. Oh, I'm sorry. That's already repealed. Never mind. Someone did my work for me. I would repeal, for instance, the Senate's being voted for popularly. I would return the choice of senators to the state governments. I would remove the strictures on state power that came from the Reconstruction Amendments. I would I would probably pass a new amendment defining more clearly the relationship between the feds and the states. And I would pass a new amendment defining the powers of the Supreme Court much more clearly. No more making up laws from their own little brains.
Well, how do you do that? Like, what does that look like then?
Well, what I think would do is, as I say, having returned the Senate to the control of the states, from my reading of the Federalist Papers anyway, it was originally intended that the American Constitution would work somewhat like the British. Now, prior to the worthless scumbag Tony Blair introducing the Supreme Court, the top court of the land in Britain was the Judicial Committee of the House of Lords. And it seems apparent to me, and they were the ones who decided on the constitutionality of issues. It seems to me that that is precisely the right venue to determine the constitutionality of a measure. Because remember what the Constitution is really, or supposedly. It's a contract between the states. The Senate was designed to be the watchdog of the states upon the federal government. Who then should have the right to determine the constitutionality of federal laws? Well, the states. But of course, you can't let them do it individually because then you'd have nullification and chaos. So what you do is you have it done by the Senate judiciary.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So that's they would determine the constitutionality of federal laws, state laws being determined by state Supreme Courts.
But that doesn't fix things per se.
No, it doesn't fix things, but there's only so much fiddling with the Constitution can do. It would make things somewhat better. And of course, having gotten rid of the 16th or 17th Amendment, I'd have gotten rid of the federal income tax.
So, okay, interesting.
So the feds would have to finance themselves alternatively. And how would they do that? Well, through constitutional means. And what would that mean? A sales tax. It would mean a sales tax across the board because, not everybody has a high income, but everybody buys stuff. So you have a flat sales tax, flat federal sales tax. The more you buy, the more you pay. Rich people automatically would pay more because they buy more. Now, the downside is that you would lose the IRS and all those wonderful government jobs that go with it. Sorry.
Interesting. I remember so that plan was basically, I mean, other than abolishing the IRS, it was Ted Cruz's plan, the flat tax.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And I have to say that having gotten rid of most of the amendments to the Constitution, while the First Amendment would forbid any of the states from discriminating against anyone because of their religious beliefs, it would not prevent the states from establishing a church if they felt like it. And all the stuff, no prayer in schools and all this garbage, that would vanish immediately. Now, mind you, it would all go back to the local level, to the state level, which means people would have to figure this out on their own, and doubtless there would be some unpleasantries. But there are unpleasantries now. The difference is, if it's done at a state level, it's a bit more manageable than when it's done by 9 old men sitting in Washington and pulling the ideas out of their noses.
Okay, is that it?
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
Why did you? Well, I always joke about adding a third house to Congress, which would be the House of Lobbyists, in which all the major interests of the country, instead of just bribing representatives and senators, they would literally buy a fixed number of seats. And that way they'd be personally responsible for things. Like, let's say, for instance, you're a senator and I'm Union Chemicals, and I'm able to buy your vote on a measure. And the thing goes south. Because of your vote, the plant blows up. There's a chemical cloud that kills half a dozen people over somewhere. Well, you get blamed for that instead of your paymaster. Whereas with my House of Lobbyists scheme, they would be directly responsible for any legislation they manage to get through Congress.
Yeah, greater transparency. I like it, right?
Exactly.
What's
exactly.
wrong
Tupper
with that?
House.
Yeah.
Be able to go halfies with Tad and buy two congressmen in the House of Lobbyists.
But still, I mean, that wouldn't necessarily stop under the table dealings.
Oh God, no.
So what would
it's
be
the
the
nature
motivation?
Of elected government. It's the nature of elected government to have under the table.
So, but what would be the incentive for a company to ever actually do that rather than exclusively use under the table dealings?
Well, they'd save money.
How would they save money?
Well, they'd save money instead of spending thousands of possibly blackmailable dollars on a congressman. They would simply pay a relatively small fixed fee to the Congress for the third house, all up front and above board.
Well, how is that's not truly lobbying though, because you're not actually. That's not the action of buying a politician.
No. We would call them lobbyists for tradition's sake.
Okay. Okay, yeah, let's keep those traditions. Got it. All right, our final question today is from Theo.
All right.
I wonder where you see the next wave of the civilization-devouring sexual revolution. The faith should be as braced and ready as possible. Seems like the revolutionaries are already testing the waters for normalizing pedophilia. See, Desmond is amazing. And the New York Times is increasingly preoccupied with promoting polyamory. What can conservatives do to try and delay defeat on these instruments of the culture of death? And when will normies wake up to the reality that they are under sustained attack?
We got to remember that the normies were partly bought off with contraception and abortion. So, I mean, they're getting their part. And the thing is, when sex becomes divorced from procreation, you're already talking about death. You see. Joe Sixpack may not like gay marriage, and he surely would not want to see his son or daughter, in a relationship with a 65-year-old man. But unfortunately, he bought his ticket and now he takes his ride.
With contraception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no-fault divorce and things like that. So, where it will stop, well, I agree with you. I mean, I think we'll have polyamory, polygamy. We'll have pederasty.
What is polyamory?
We'll have, loving anything or anyone. And multiple partners.
Okay.
And I think bestiality is on route. My joke at the time that Brokeback Mountain came out was I had written a script called Brokeback Kennel, a bittersweet tale of a doctor who falls for one of his patients. But unfortunately, that very year, a movie came out about a man and his horse. Love is everywhere. I don't mean a porn movie.
Okay.
So that's, but I think, when you say the culture of death, it will die. This culture of ours is going to collapse. The question is, how soon and how much will it take with it? That's a big question. How much will it take with it?
Yeah, to me, this conjures up images of biblical happenings because you have the culture of life, culture of death. So it's like the ark. It's like Noah's Ark, right? You go on the ark and there's life. Everything
Yeah.
else gets wiped away. Sodom and Gomorrah. You get out of there. And so just keep doing what we're doing, and we'll continue. We have what I always have hope for. I don't know if I've said this on the show, but we have several very large Catholic families that are just reproducing like rabbits, like
Like
bunnies.
rabbits? I've heard
Yeah,
that condemned by somebody.
yeah, reproducing like rabbits. And
Ooh.
more than anything else, I have hope in that because it's interesting because I've heard non-religious people talk about their perceptions of Catholics, and they don't think that we actually love or raise our children. Like they think that we have this many, like 7, 8 kids or whatever, and that we're like irresponsible. We just let them run wild, and they don't understand the love that is attached
No,
to
they don't,
there.
and they can't. I mean, as you know, I have 10 nieces and nephews
Yeah,
uh, for my brother and sister-in-law,
yeah.
and large families like that, they become very tribal.
Oh, yeah, of
They
course. Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah. Uh, it hit me actually at mass at St. Therese one day. After mass, I was chatting with three of my nieces, and this person walks by and looked at us as though we were a little bit nuts and walked off. And I realized it's because we were talking as members of my family do, and to an outsider, it would sound almost like gibberish. Uh, it's hard for me to explain, but it's a
Now,
combination.
I've
What's that?
seen it. I've seen it. The Coulombe clan is unbelievably clannish and tribal. Um,
A lot of people have told me that, and I think it's unfair. I think that if you're outsiders, you're not necessarily evil. I mean, the presumption, of course, is there. It would be. You can see that. But I think that someone should be allowed to prove themselves diabolical before we judge them. Now, many of my fellow family members don't agree with me on this. I try to explain to them that outsiders are, God made them too. Is my attitude. But again, some of my relations have a hard time with that concept. But I think it makes sense. I think that there wouldn't be so many non-Coulombes in the world if God didn't want them to be there. I've told my brother this. I don't know how many of our cousins I've told this, and some of them have had a great deal of difficulty with the concept, you know. But I said, look, my brother married an outsider, and she's fine. And they sort of hem and haw, and they said, well, she's the exception that proves the rule.
yeah. So,
Shallow end of the gene pool, as you might say. What?
yeah. Okay. So yeah. So Catholics should have hope in the culture of life because
And
yeah,
and the way we have hope in it is by living it.
and living it. Yeah.
Uh, you know, if if you can imagine concentric circles, it starts with you personally. Be the best individual you can be. Be honorable. Be devout. Be industrious. Be honest. Keep your word. That stuff. Then marry. If you're going to get married, marry as well as you can. And if you're not going to get married and you don't go into the religious life, then be the best part of your extended family that you can. But then beyond that, be the best participant in your particular community that you can be. And there are things that, they sound, my gosh, everything from the slow food movement to shop local Saturday. Well, these things seem a bit odd, but they all bear up an important point, which is that we do live in particular places. Explore where you live. Go to farmers markets. Do volunteer work at your local historic house museum. And see what your local historical society is up to, or your local conservation group. Now, mind you, I'm not talking necessarily about the Sierra Club and a lot of these things that are very pro abortion and so on, but I mean local groups. The Friends of the Nutwood Forest, that being the name of the woods by your town, presumably. That kind of thing is what I'm talking about. And of course, fraternal organizations, service groups that work in the local area, like the Knights of Columbus. You don't have to wear the new uniform to be first, second, or third degree, or even fourth degree. You don't have to be in the color guard. There's no requirement. If you're a veteran, join the VFW or the American Legion. Let your light shine among men. But do it all with a purpose. Don't do it just to do it. Let people see and know who you are by what and how you carry yourself and how and what you do.
Okay.
And when you work with these groups, make sure that any entertaining you do, you invite them all to your place, to the baptismal party or the confirmation party.
Of course. Okay, time for Book of the Week.
Oi, what do we got?
Magisterial Authority by Father Chad Ripperger. PhD. How do you like that?
PhD.
Yeah.
Gosh.
So
Magisterial Authority. Pachamama.
Yeah. No, not quite. No.
Pachamama doesn't have magisterial authority.
What?
But why shouldn't she? According to the Amazonian Synod, Pachamama has to have magisterial authority. She has to be able to define in areas of faith and morals.
No.
The fact that she's a wooden idol and doesn't say anything and doesn't have any brains, well, how is she different from a lot of our... Don't say it. Don't finish that thought.
Are you done? Are you done being ridiculous right now?
Ridiculous? I'm being accepting.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so Magisterial Authority. Father Ripperger answers a lot of questions that I know trads have. Like, when is the Pope infallible? What are the criteria for papal infallibility? And how do we determine if a papal pronouncement meets those criteria? What does the church have to finally do to get on the right track?
Throw idols in the river.
What were some popes who committed error while being pope? Charles
Honorians.
can tell you some of that. Yes, see, Charles.
John the 23rd, or 22nd, rather.
Let's see, what other questions? Does papal infallibility apply to the canonization of saints?
Yes.
Charles, you can't say that. You're ruining the reason.
All right. No.
No. Okay. When are bishops infallible? Ooh.
But they repeat infallible teaching.
Are you going to just answer all the questions that I'm going to... All right. How does all of this apply to Vatican II?
With great difficulty.
That's more like it. What do we do if the Pope or a bishop says something contrary to the faith?
We hold our breaths till we turn blue.
Something like that. Okay, I just want to read 3 good quotes to kind of show you Father Ripperger's approach on this.
Okay.
This is an interesting quote. We must always show the Pope honor or reverence as a matter of showing it to God. How do you like
what
that
about
one, Charles? In other words, by showing the Pope honor and reverence, you're showing it to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I always kissed God on Mahoney's ring.
Absolutely. Here's another one. There is great danger in succumbing to impiety when a person allows one's interior life to be disturbed by various members of the magisterium or priest saying things contrary to the faith. We should not be disturbed because we see the same thing playing itself out in Scripture, where Peter denies Christ.
Very true.
This last one is interesting. I actually didn't realize this because he defines scandal. What scandal is? He says scandal is when one allows what another person does to affect one's faith.
Well,
That's interesting because I thought the act, like by the very act itself, scandal is created, but this seems to imply that it's only scandal if you react poorly.
well, I always think of what my late father used to say. Those who are easily scandalized generally enjoy it a whole lot. Oh, that's terrible, sinful. And then what did she do? Well, I don't know if I should tell you this. It gets really bad. Oh, no. It's all right. Tell me. It's terrible. Awful. I think you're showing a little too much curiosity here. Oh, no, it's for her own good, really. I need to know this. So, well, then what?
Yeah, it's...
Sad.
Well, it's something that I think is a struggle for the faithful in general.
Yeah, I mean, Pachamama. It's very difficult, Pachamama. I mean, after all, Pachamama, it's very, very hard, Pachamama, to see through everything that's going on, Pachamama, and avoid being scandalized by Pachamama, some of the things that they do.
Are you okay? Are you having a stroke right now? What's happening?
No. It's called Pachamama Tourette's. Pachamama. By the way, speaking of Pachamama, supposedly the idols were recovered from the Tiber.
Yeah.
But Axel, because he and I were in Rome, he doesn't think so. He thinks the whole thing's a fraud.
The recovering of Pachamama's statues?
Yeah. It says they probably brought boxloads of things to the slave labor camp in China where they make them. Same place where they make our Christmas ornaments. And, they probably had a ton of these things. It says, what is the likelihood they'd be able to recover the stupid things from the Tiber? And notice no one was allowed to examine them outside the popo.
I did think that was weird, but I don't know. I'm not going to call anyone a liar, but... Yeah.
Pachamama. Now, I was asked why they don't have Pachapapa. And it's not sexism. It's good taste. Because you know how Pachamama's female characteristics are exaggerated?
Yeah. Big breasts and, she's naked. Yeah.
And big tummy.
Big tummy.
What do you think Pachapapa looks like? Yeah. Yep. They're a match set. So it's not sexism, it's good taste that prevented them from showing the Pachapapa statues.
I'm a fan of good taste. Yeah, that's good.
My question is, why are a bunch of celibates interested in fertility rites anyway?
Well, it's a culture of life.
Yeah, but it's like scattering fertilizer on ground you're keeping fallow. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, they recognize the laity's duties and mission.
I don't know about that. I have a feeling that they're really just playing Bomba the Jungle Boy, and they're not really serious about what they're doing.
You can't read into a person's heart, Charles.
But they read into mine.
Do they? What did they read into your heart?
That I'm rigid.
You're not
No,
rigid. You're not rigid.
no, I'm not rigid. I was raised in Hollywood, for heaven's sake.
Well,
In the House of Criswell.
that's actually true.
Yes.
Definitely. That's definitely a resume builder right there in terms of not rigid.
Yep. 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 And I'm a licensed liturgical dancer.
Of course, right? Yeah. In
See?
case you need to present your certification to someone. Yep. Yeah.
See? So I've got what it takes. I've got what it takes. I've eaten restaurants like the late lamented Good Earth. You know, I'm sorry. I've got all my non-judgmental street cred.
I think so. You're pretty good on that one.
Yeah, I'm good on women's issues.
Women's issues, yeah.
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 Women's issues.
All right, we're rambling. Any closing thoughts
rambling.
for?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do have closing thoughts. Firstly, don't forget that you've still got 4 days left when you see this for the octave of the Holy Souls. So get to some cemetery and start praying for the dead. That's one thing. As I said, get ready for the Remembrance Day next week. And let's not forget, lest we forget, it being November, we've got Thanksgiving coming up. When we give thanks for the Puritans. Thanks for the memories. Ba-up, 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 ba-up. And the 30th of November is when it's time to get your Scot on.
What?
Your Scot.
Why?
It's time to put on your kilt, laddie.
What is it, St. Andrew?
Aye. Yeah, you've got to get down to the Tapestra, and have a St. Andrew's Day dinner.
See, that's Irish.
What's that?
I'm pretty sure both your accent and that restaurant are both Irish.
No, the tab is Scots.
Are you serious?
Yes, it is so Scots that when I first started coming there in the 70s, it was called the Great Scot.
Okay.
It's sheer Scottish theme, tartans and everything else.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
Otman, a bit of the burr. Actually, what we might do this year, because I don't plan to come back to Europe until February, we might have a Tumbler House Burns Day dinner.
Really?
Go to the tab for the Robert Burns dinner.
What day is that?
Around the 30th of January. Or the 28th. It'll be late January anyway. Last week.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So, yeah. And I'll be home for Candlemas as well.
Excellent.
So, no Lent I'll be here for, but I'll be home for Candlemas. You can count on me. Please have candles and lots of wax and blessings under the tree. Candlemas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Candlemas, if only in my dreams. How's that?
That's good.
All right. Well, I think we've done it. We've done the pre-show. We've done the post-show. We've done the no-show. So, what do you say, boss?
I think that'll do it. Remember, if it's Monday,
it's off the menu.
And the soul you save
may be your own. Take care, everybody.